Welcome back to Fact or Fixation, where today we'll be looking into one of history's greatest mysteries, the life and existence of Jesus the Christ. It begins with a simple question: was he truly a historical figure, or just a mythological creation used as a control mechanism to maintain order among the population? First, let us take a look at the evidence that supports the existence of Jesus and the stories behind his life, from his immaculate conception to the miracles attributed to his hands. In the annals of history, few figures have left a more profound impact on human civilization than Jesus of Nazareth. His teachings, as recorded in the Bible's New Testament, have shaped the course of Western civilization and inspired countless individuals for over 2 millennia. Yet, the question of whether Jesus truly existed as a historical figure remains a subject of intense debate. In this documentary-style presentation, we will explore the arguments and evidence on both sides of this contentious issue, shedding light on the complex tapestry of historical and religious perspectives. One of the primary arguments in favor of the historical existence of Jesus revolves around the wealth of biblical accounts and early Christian writings that describe his life, teachings, and crucifixion. The New Testament contains the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which provide detailed narratives of Jesus' ministry, crucifixion, and resurrection. These texts, written within decades of the events they describe, are seen by many as historical documents that attest to Jesus' existence. Several ancient historians and scholars, including Josephus and Tacitus, make references to Jesus in their works. While these references are brief and not without controversy, they do provide external validation of Jesus' existence. For example, Josephus, a Jewish historian writing in the late 1st century, mentioned Jesus in his Antiquities of the Jews and described him as a wise man and a worker of miracles. Historians often use the criterion of embarrassment to assess the historicity of a figure or event. The idea is that if a story or detail is embarrassing or counterproductive to the interests of the early Christian community, it is more likely to be true. For example, the baptism of Jesus by John the Baptist, an event that could have been seen as undermining Jesus' divine status, is regarded as an embarrassing detail that lends credibility to the historical account. Some proponents of the historical existence of Jesus point to archaeological discoveries that support the New Testament accounts. For instance, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, a collection of Jewish texts from the same era as Jesus, provides historical context for the religious and political climate in which Jesus lived. While the scrolls do not mention Jesus directly, they offer valuable insights into the world he inhabited. Within the Gospels, there are claims of eyewitness accounts of Jesus' life and ministry. Proponents argue that these accounts, although recorded decades after the events, provide valuable first-hand testimony to Jesus' existence. For example, the Gospel of John is traditionally attributed to one of Jesus' disciples, which lends credence to the idea that it contains first-hand recollections. Now that we've looked into the pros of his existence, let's take a look at the arguments against the life and stories of the historical Jesus of Nazareth. One of the most significant challenges to establishing the historical existence of Jesus is the lack of contemporary, first-hand evidence. While the New Testament provides accounts of Jesus' life, these texts were written by his followers, not by objective, contemporary historians. Skeptics argue that the absence of direct non-Christian sources from the time of Jesus raises doubts about his existence. Some critics contend that the story of Jesus bears striking similarities to the myths of other ancient religious figures, such as Horus in Egyptian mythology or Mithras in Roman religion. They argue that the Jesus narrative may have been influenced by or borrowed from these pre-existing myths, suggesting that Jesus himself may be a mythological construct. Given that Jesus was a Jewish preacher in the first century, the absence of contemporary Jewish sources mentioning him has raised skepticism. If Jesus had truly been a prominent figure in his time, some argue, he would have left a more substantial mark on the historical records of the period. Critics of the historical Jesus point to discrepancies and contradictions within the Gospel accounts as reasons to doubt their historical accuracy. For instance, the differing genealogies of Jesus in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke have led some to question the reliability of these texts. These contradictions raise concerns about the reliability of the Gospels as historical documents. For instance, Philo of Alexandria was a Jewish philosopher and historian who lived in the first century. Despite his writings on various aspects of Jewish life and history, he makes no mention of Jesus. This silence has led some skeptics to question why a contemporary Jewish scholar like Philo would omit references to a figure as significant as Jesus if he indeed existed. As we take a deeper look at the subject, we must examine the views of the scholars who support and argue against these opinions. Bart Ehrman, a prominent historical scholar, argues that Jesus did exist as a historical figure. He contends that the multiple independent references to Jesus in various historical texts, both Christian and non-Christian, provide convincing evidence for his existence. Ehrman acknowledges that the picture of Jesus in the New Testament may be embellished, but he asserts that the core existence of a Jewish preacher named Jesus is historically plausible. On the opposing side, Richard Carrier, a mythicist scholar, argues that Jesus is a mythological figure who never existed as a historical person. He points to the lack of contemporary evidence and the similarities between the Jesus narrative and other mythological stories as reasons to doubt Jesus' existence. Carrier asserts that early Christian communities created the Jesus myth as a religious allegory. John P. Meyer, a leading figure in the study of the historical Jesus, argues for a middle ground position. He emphasizes the importance of historical criteria and rigorous analysis in determining the historicity of Jesus. Meyer acknowledges that the Gospels contain elements of theological interpretation, but also believes that it is possible to extract valuable historical information from them. Robert M. Price, another advocate of the mythicist position, asserts that the evidence for the historical Jesus is insufficient and that the Gospels are unreliable as historical sources. Price contends that the earliest Christian writings, such as the letters of Paul, reveal no knowledge of a historical Jesus and that the Jesus story emerged as a myth within the evolving Christian tradition. From a theological standpoint, Christians firmly assert the historical existence of Jesus. For them, the New Testament and the teachings of Jesus are foundational to their faith. The life, death, and resurrection of Jesus hold immense significance as central elements of Christian theology. Agnostics and atheists, on the other hand, often approach the question of Jesus' existence with skepticism. They argue that belief in Jesus' divinity and resurrection is a matter of faith, while the historical evidence is insufficient to establish his existence as a fact. Within the Jewish community, the question of Jesus' existence is approached differently. Traditional Jewish belief maintains that Jesus was not the Messiah, while some scholars suggest that he may have been a historical figure whose teachings diverged from mainstream Judaism. For many Jews, the debate about Jesus' existence is overshadowed by theological differences. In recent years, interfaith dialogue has encouraged conversations among religious scholars and leaders from various faith traditions. These dialogues often seek common ground while acknowledging differences. The question of Jesus' existence is a topic of interest in such dialogues as it offers an opportunity to explore shared historical and ethical values. As this deep discussion expands, additional arguments continue to emerge from both sides. Proponents emphasize the wealth of textual and archaeological evidence, as well as the criterion of embarrassment, to support the idea that Jesus was a real historical figure. They argue that the New Testament and early Christian writings offer a credible account of his life and teachings. Theological perspectives also play a significant role in shaping views on this issue. For Christians, the historical existence of Jesus is a fundamental aspect of their faith, while other religious and non-religious groups may approach the question differently, often from a more neutral or skeptical standpoint. In the end, the historical existence of Jesus remains a matter of interpretation, shaped by one's beliefs, perspectives, and the weight assigned to different types of historical evidence. Regardless of where one stands on this issue, there is no denying the profound impact of the figure of Jesus on the course of human history and the enduring power of his teachings. The debate surrounding the historical existence of Jesus reflects the complexity of historical inquiry, the limitations of the available evidence, and the enduring significance of Jesus as a figure who has left an indelible mark on human history and spirituality. Regardless of one's position, the quest for understanding the life and impact of Jesus continues to be a topic of deep interest and debate. This concludes our brief look into the theories involving the existence of Jesus of Nazareth and the many stories surrounding his life. Hopefully, this quick summary of the different views and perspectives around the events of this historical giant can bring some clarity on why religious and non-religious people alike feel so strongly about this subject. So until next time, keep an open mind and remember, the universe is immense, and not everything you see is what it appears to be.